Good morning, everyone. This morning, we have an opportunity to be part of a conversation with two leading faith-based social activists and educators who will speak with us and talk with us about their efforts to build understanding and collaboration across religious lines. Our moderator, Dr. Henry Goldschmidt, will introduce them in a moment. But before he does that, I'd like to introduce you to him. He's the director of the Interfaith Center of New York, the director of education programs, and has brought this program to us today. The Interfaith Center works to build relationships of mutual understanding and respect among New York religious and civic leaders. Dr. Henry Goldschmidt is also a cultural anthropologist and scholar of New York's religious diversity. One of his many jobs is introducing New Yorkers and others to religious diversity by introducing them to their diverse neighbors, and that is what he will do with us and for us this morning. Please welcome Dr. Goldschmidt.
Thank you guys, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm too tall for this mic, but I think it'll work out. Well, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm thrilled that you've invited us to share some time with the Regis community today. So as Mary said, my name is Henry Goldschmidt. I'm the Director of Education Programs at the Interfaith Center of New York. And one of the things, I think the most important thing that I do in my work at the Interfaith Center is to help create programs like this that break down the barriers between New York City schools and the diverse religious communities that are all around them. For example, by inviting wonderful activists and educators like Tom Dobbins and Manaz Afridi, who I'll introduce more in a moment, to come spend some time with you all on a kind of soggy spring morning. So the reason that the Interfaith Center does this kind of program, the reason we think that it is so important, as Mary said, to teach people about religious diversity by actually introducing them to their religiously diverse neighbors, rather than just reading about it in a textbook. The reason we think that this kind of program is so important, and the reason we hope that it's worth an hour of your morning today, it has everything to do, actually, with the distinction between religious diversity and pluralism that Diana Eck raised in the short essay that most of you, I think, have read in advance of this conversation. Trust me, there's not going to be a pop quiz. But I hope you've had a chance to look at this brief piece by Diana Eck that the faculty at Regis has distributed, and if not, you can get it and take a look later. But so in this essay, From Diversity to Pluralism, Diana Eck, she argues, she says, pluralism is the engagement that creates a common society from the foundation of religious or racial or ethnic diversity. So pluralism, it requires something more than just the sheer fact of having religiously diverse people in the same neighborhood, in the same city, in the same community. It requires relationships, it requires engagement. So for example, she says, on the same street in Silver Spring, Maryland, and you could say the same of a lot of streets throughout New York. On the same street in Silver Spring, Maryland, are a Vietnamese Catholic church, a Cambodian Buddhist temple, a Ukrainian Orthodox church, a Muslim community center, a Hispanic First Church of God, and a Hindu temple. This is certainly diversity, but without any engagement or relationship among the diverse groups, it may not be an instance of pluralism. And I think you can say the same thing, the same distinction between diversity and pluralism applies just as well to the ways that we learn about the religious worlds that are all around us. Right? You can read you know, a world religions or global studies textbook that has a chapter, you know, about that Vietnamese Catholic Church and the Cambodian Buddhist temple and the Muslim Community Center and the Hindu temple. You know, you can go like chapter by chapter in your textbook and learn about each of those traditions. And you're learning there about religious diversity. But if you don't have some real understanding of the relationships among these traditions and communities in the world around you, then you're not really being prepared to participate in a pluralistic society, which is, you know, for better or worse, and I think better, what we've got here in New York and in the United States. So a real education for pluralism requires more than that kind of, you know, textbook world religions survey. An education for pluralism, I think, requires two key things, and we're going to try to do a little bit of both of those today. First, it requires learning about the relationships among religious communities in the world around you. How are people of faith from different backgrounds, traditions, communities, perspectives, working together to create a better society? And this is what Tom Dobbins and Manaz Afridi will introduce us to today by talking a little bit from their own perspectives about interfaith relations and coalitions in New York City. And then second, I think the most important thing for a real education for pluralism is an invitation to you all as students to participate in the pluralism that you are learning about, to become a part of the conversation. And that's what we'll do in the second half of our time together this morning. We'll hear briefly from Tom and Manaz, but we really want to save a lot of time today for questions from you all, conversations amongst us all together, to really draw you in to the pluralism of American society and of New York's religious communities. So those are our goals today. We don't have a huge amount of time to accomplish them, but we'll do our best. Our speakers, I'm not going to read long bios of them. I think most of you have received a flyer with bios of our speakers. If you haven't got this, I believe there's more copies here, and maybe on the way out you can get a copy and learn a little bit more about them. But I'll just say very briefly, Dr. Manaz Afridi is an assistant professor of religious studies and director of the Holocaust, Genocide, and Interfaith Education Center at Manhattan College. And Tom Dobbins, Jr. is the Justice and Peace Coordinator in the Department of Social and Community Development of Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of New York. And I'm really just delighted that they could both join us today. And I will pass this on to them in no particular order.